Welcome to Beardy, Bruce Lee Central.
Hey everybody, it's Birdie here. What's going on, guys? Okay, so good old Chuck Norris. We all know him, we all love him. But I have a feeling you're not going to agree with him on this one, okay? So, good old Chuck has a bizarre theory concerning Bruce Lee's death. So, let's take a listen to what Chuck Norris has to say about Bruce Lee and Bruce Lee's death.
Suspect foul play by any chance?
Hate to say
I don't know. I can't even speculate
God.
what the situation. These are things that are unforeseen, that are dangerous. And when you're doing action films, which is unfortunately the case with Brandon Lee, that an unfortunate accident happened there, and we're waiting to find out what the cause of that
What
was.
is still, as we sit here now, a mystery about the Brandon Lee death?
We still
People
don't
know who we're referring to, I hope.
Yeah.
The son of Bruce Lee killed
Yeah.
during a shooting of a scene
Yeah.
of shooting.
Hopefully, by the time this airs, that the result will be resolved on what really did happen. And
What's your best guess? What's it look
to
like?
be truthful, Dick, I thought, in a weapon that you fire that's they have a little plug in there to make it a blank.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that plug, when you shoot off the blank, will shoot that plug out of the barrel, and it's like a bullet.
Even though it's a piece of
Just a
cardboard?
no, it's not a cardboard. It's
not,
like
it's
a
more-
plug. It's like a metal plug in
Is
there.
metal?
Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that'll discharge and lodge, but it's only effective for just a few feet. I thought that at first. Then I found out that wasn't the case. Then I heard that it was the tip of the dummy. Like when you show a gun up close, they stick dummy bullets in there, so it
Yeah.
looks like real bullets. But there's no powder or anything in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard that when they took them out, the tip of it lodged in the chamber. And then when they used the charge, that tip shot out.
Right.
Then I heard that wasn't the case, that didn't happen. So truthfully, I don't know what the situation
Because that
is.
was the story, I think it was in People magazine, and that seemed plausible, but if that
It
isn't
sounded
it,
plausible,
then there's
but-
still a mystery. Huh?
Then I talked to some law enforcement guys down there, and they said they tried that, and they said they couldn't make it work that way. So maybe by the time this airs, we'll all know.
You suspect foul play by any chance? Hate to say
I don't know. I can't even speculate
God.
what the situation is.
Sitting down. And I said, oh, wow, and because I'd never met him. I'd seen him, doing his stuff. And anyway, we kind of nodded at each other. And then I fought and won the championship. And Bruce Lee goes like this here. So I go down there and get off, and we start talking. And he says, don't you live in L.A.? I says, yes. He says, I do too. So why don't we start training together? I said, okay. So Bruce and I worked out for 2 years together. He taught me a lot of his Chinese techniques, and I showed him a lot of our techniques of kicks and all the stuff here. He believed in only kicking below the waist. And I said, well, that's good, Bruce. He said, you should be able to kick anywhere. You should be able to put that foot anywhere. And so, so we trained together for 2 years, and he got, as you could tell, he got really good at it. and anyway, and then finally he gives me a call, and he says, I'm leaving for Hong Kong to do a movie. And I said, oh, that's great. Well, good luck. So I don't hear from Bruce for 2 years. And then out of the blue, he gives me a call. He says, I've done 2 movies in Hong Kong, and they're really successful. He says, I want to do a movie now with a fight scene that's never been done before, and I want you to be my opponent. I go, and I've never done anything like that. I said, why? Because I'm the world champion? Is that And I said, well, who wins, Bruce? He said, kidding. He said, I'm going to win. I'm the champ. I'm the winner. I'm the star. I said, oh, okay. So anyway, Bruce and I, did this big fight scene in Rome, and it was really, because Bruce and I worked out for 2 years together, so we knew each other very, very well. I knew everything that he wants to do, and he knows everything that I like to do. And so when we did the fight scene, we pretty much just put it together right there. And anyway, we did the fight scene, and after it was over, I went back home, and then in 1972, I get a call. Bruce was coming to LA to see his doctor. And he says, so he says, let's have lunch. So we have lunch. And he says, I'm going to see the doctor, and because I've got some problems. I'm getting dizzy and passing out. So I want to find out what it is. So anyway, so he goes to the doctor and does the whole thing. Anyway, after he does, we get back together, and I said, how'd it go? And he says, well, the doctor says, he was 32, he's the same age as me. We were both 32. And he says, the doctor says, I'm like an 18-year-old kid. I said, oh, that's great. And I said, did he tell you why you're falling and doing all the falling and all that stuff? He says, he doesn't know. He says, it could just be anything. So anyway, he leaves for Hong Kong. And a few months later, he passes away. And I was shocked. Anyway, when they went to Seattle, just laying there, and we all went up. Me and a lot of our friends that Bruce's went up there for the graduation when he died. And Linda, his wife, decided to move back to California. And he found a home about maybe a half a block from my house, so I could spend time with Brandon, the boy. And I did. I spent a lot of time with him, telling him about his dad and all this stuff here. And then, of course, he became a champion. Star himself. And then, unfortunately, he wound up passing away. But the thing is that Bruce was an incredible guy, and this is, and this time I spent with him, going through this whole thing here, was something that I will never forget about. And so this is about Bruce Lee.
When I was having dinner with Chuck, I did ask him. I said, if you and Bruce were in a real fight to the death, who would win? And he, without thinking, he said, Bruce, of course. Right. Nobody could beat him.
Okay, so the voice you just heard was the voice of John Ben, the boss from Way of the Dragon. Now, this was a secret recording. He wasn't aware that he was being recorded. So he sat down with Chuck Norris and he asked Chuck Norris, who would win in a real fight between you and Bruce Lee? And Chuck said that Bruce Lee would win that fight. Now, if you ask Chuck Norris today, he would never, ever admit that Bruce Lee would beat him in a fight. Chuck has done hundreds of interviews and he never, ever, ever admits that Bruce Lee would beat him in a real fight. Why? Well, I just don't know. So John Ben and I talked together actually years ago. We had a phone call and I just wanted to get his impressions of Bruce Lee. And he told me that he used to vacation with Bruce Lee. And all of the time that they would hang out together, Bruce Lee would talk about martial arts, and it was only martial arts. He was only thinking about training, exercise, and martial arts. And he also said that Bruce Lee was the fastest and strongest guy he had ever seen. Now, John Ben is 6'4". He's a huge guy, a big guy, and Bruce Lee would push him around like he was nothing. And you even saw that in the movie Way of the Dragon.
In fact, I was fighting for the world title, and that's when Bruce was doing the Green Hornet series, and he came back there as a celebrity guest. And after I won the title, the promoter introduced me to Bruce, and so we started talking about our philosophies and the martial arts and so forth. And anyway, we were both staying at the same hotel, the Americana in New York, and we started walking over to the hotel. As we got going up the elevator, I remember Bruce was staying on the 7th floor, and I was on the 9th. As we got to his floor, we were really getting pretty involved into our conversation. So instead of me going up, I stepped out in the hallway with him, and this is like 11:30 at night, and we started working out in the hallway. And next time I looked at my watch, it was 7 o'clock the next morning. And it was amazing because the guy he had so much knowledge and, as you know, on the screen, ability, that it seemed like an hour had gone by as far as us working out and exchanging ideas. So he said, well, when we get back to Los Angeles, why don't we start working out together, which we did. When I got back, we started training together, and then the series was canceled, and he went to Hong Kong to pursue a movie career. When he went to Hong Kong, his first movie, the biggest grossing movie in Asia, before Bruce went over there, was The Sound of Music. It had grossed $2.4 million, which again was the biggest movie ever grossed in the Orient. Bruce did the first movie called The Big Boss, which over here was The Fist of Fury, and that one grossed $3.2 million, which is $800,000 more than The Sound of Music. Then he did The Fist of Fury, which over here was called The Chinese Connection, and that one grossed $4.3 million. And then he called me up and he said he'd like to do a movie with a real good fight scene in the movie. I said, well, the only way we can have a fight scene is if I get to hit you once in a while. And he said, well, yeah, naturally, we'd make it a back and forth type fight. So anyway, that fight scene that you saw took us 5 days to do, and in Asia alone, the movie grossed over $11 million. It's the biggest grossing movie in the history of Asia, and they don't think anything will surpass it for a long time. Then Bruce naturally did Enter the Dragon, which was his last movie, and it was probably the biggest grossing movie as far as martial art movies go. But Bruce was 32 years old. Let me explain something about his death too, because there's, I guess, so many rumors that are going about how he passed away and so forth, about touch of death and drugs and so forth. And so I'd like to clarify that before we go on with the demonstration. Is Bruce in 1968? He's pretty heavy in the weightlifting, as you could tell. He was very well built. And he was lifting weights one night with Kareem Jabbar, who was a student of his when he was in Los Angeles, playing at UCLA. And he tried to lift too heavy weights, and he ruptured the disc in his back, and he was laid up in the hospital for 3 weeks. In fact, the doctor said that they didn't know if he'd be able to walk again or not. But of course, with a person like Bruce, who's got the drive and determination to achieve anything in life, he was up in about a month, and within 3 months, he was as strong as he ever was. But he had constant back pains from that day on, and he was having to take medication to keep the muscles in the back loose and relaxed. So what happened is that when he was in Hong Kong preparing for his next movie, he was working with a girl named Betty, and who was going to co-star with him, and he got a severe headache. So Betty gave him some antibiotics for the headache, and with the medication he had taken for his back and the medication he had taken for his headache, they reacted to each other and made his brain swell up, and it created an aneurysm or ruptured blood cells in his brain, and that's actually what happened. So if anyone asks you what happened,